Okay.
Ready? Okay. Opening the Board of Architecture review for January 29th, 2018. Start with public comment. If any member of the public would like to wish to address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject that's not scheduled on this agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes for December 18th, which was full board, right? Anybody have any comments?
Chairman Moore?
Yes, sir.
The only thing I might request be clarified a little bit more is under item number 2, comment number 2, maybe just inserting the language of shall allow for adequate space between the garage doors and fixtures, just to be a little bit more precise so it's not insinuating that we're trying to talk about other locations. But
Okay.
if no one else feels that way, it's fine.
That seems like it would make sense. Yeah, garage doors. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, if no one else has anything, guess we need a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I abstain.
Okay,
Abstain.
great. Let's see, gosh, we have January 8th consent.
For the Architectural Board of Review consent agenda for January 8th, we have item A, 920 Summit was given approval of its review after final with comments. Item B, 1507 San Pasquale was continued 1 week with comments. Item C, 325 West Anapamu Street was given approval of its review after final as submitted. Item D, 604 East Coda Street was given approval of review after final with the comment that Item E, 520 East Yananali Street, project design and final approval with conditions. Item F, 815 East Mason Street was continued indefinitely with comments. Made it a long one. Item G, 823 East Mason, continued indefinitely with comments. Item H, 502 East Haley Street was given project design and final approval with comments. Item I, 1801 Bath Street was given project design and final approval with conditions. And item J, 1203 Castillo Street, Unit A was given project design approval and final approval as submitted.
Okay. Need a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
All right.
I don't know if I can do that. Is that?
Sure.
Yeah, you were the reviewer, so
Yeah.
that's
I'll-
great.
I'll second.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I ask a question to either of you? So if I wasn't there for the full board meeting, do I have to abstain from approving the consent minutes? No?
No.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm.
Then aye.
We didn't have a full board meeting that week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I abstain.
Okay.
All right, now January 16th.
January 16th, Architectural Board of Review consent agenda. Item A, 201 West Mission Street was continued indefinitely with comment. Item B, 126 North Milpas was given project design and final approval as submitted. Item C, 3700 State Street, Suite 110 was given project design and final approval with comments. Item D, 1507 San Pasqual was postponed 1 week due to a lack of quorum.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve.
Okay. Second?
Now, I was in absence,
So you can abstain.
so, but for approval of the minutes,
Doesn't matter.
I can,
No one needs to abstain from consent.
okay, so I approve of the minutes.
Okay. That's a
The second.
seconder. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then January 22nd.
January 22nd, Architectural Board of Review consent agenda. Item A, 3714 State Street was continued indefinitely with comments. And item B, 1507 San Pasqual was given approval of its review after final.
Okay.
You may vote on all of them. It's consent, so yeah. There's only one person present, so it wouldn't make sense to have to abstain.
Okay. We have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
And today, Architectural Board of Review consent agenda for January 29th, 2018. Item A, 2757 Miradero Drive, segment ID 0371 was given a approval of its review after final as submitted. And item B, 3790 State Street was given project design and final approval with comments.
All right.
Move that we approve.
Okay. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see, do we have any announcements, requests by applicants, continuances, withdrawals, etc.?
We sure do, Mr. Chair. So today, Chair Gradine and Vice Chair Tripp will be absent from today's meeting. Since they are both absent, we will be postponing elections and appointments until the next meeting. Item 732 Bond Avenue will be postponed to the February 12th meeting due to a lack of quorum. Item 501 East Mitchell Terrain Street will also be postponed to the February 12th, 2018 meeting due to a lack of quorum. Item 7, 402 Anacapa Street has been postponed to the February 26th, 2018 agenda, full board. And item 6, 500 block of Garden Street has been moved up and will be heard after item 3 at approximately 5:15 p.m.
Okay, great.
It's also come to my attention that the new member on the board, Bob Cunningham, welcome, by the way, will be abstaining from one of the 4 items that we have on today. Unless, do you want to abstain from 101?
No, I don't want to abstain from anything unless
Okay.
I have to.
Item 2.
Okay, yes, thank you, Bob Cunningham, for coming on board and
Pleasure.
picking up the baton for landscape. Be nice. Finally.
Finally.
Any subcommittee reports? I don't think so. Okay. All right, well, if we're ready, we are ready for item 1, which is 101 South Canada Street. Okay. This is a proposal for tentative parcel map for a 3-unit condominium development, including construction of a 4,176 square foot 2-story duplex and a 631 square foot 3-car garage on a 13,153 square foot lot. The existing 1,400 1,046 square foot single-family residence would remain and would be remodeled to include a 754 square foot second-story addition above a new 457 square foot two-car garage and one-car carport. There will be 525 cubic yards of grading, excavation, and 635 cubic yards of fill. Also proposed is the demolition of 2 unpermitted sheds, a two-car garage to address violations identified in an enforcement case. The development on site will be 7,064 square feet with a residential density of 10 dwelling units per acre on an R2 zoned lot. So that's with a general plan use designation of medium density residential with a maximum of 12 dwelling units per acre. Okay, this is a third concept review, comments only. Let's see, are there any comments from last time?
As I understand it, this was a request for preliminary design review and not a third concept. I'm worried that was misnoticed.
Our notes say the project requires review by staff hearing officer for tentative subdivision map.
Prior to
Matthew?
design approval?
So, yes, that is correct. You would need to go to the Planning Commission to receive approval of your tentative subdivision map, and this is just the first stop. They would need to make the project compatibility analysis findings,
Right.
and then you would be sent to the Planning Commission. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry, staff hearing officer.
Right.
Part it's
Okay.
smaller than 4 units, so you would go to staff hearing officer.
Got it. Okay. So last we were here in January, the project generally received positive comments, I think largely because of
Let's turn it on. There's Mike's. Well, why don't we run through the motion
Sure.
and the comments first, and that'll help us. So, in general, the board appreciated the project and its direction. The board thought the style and massing were appropriate, especially since the majority of the larger structure is set back and complemented with a generous amount of open space. Number 3, study simplifying the details and architectural features. Number 4, study eliminating some bedrooms and implementing some additional private open space. 5, study the possibility of lowering the second floor plate height to bring the roof line down towards the street and neighboring structures. Number 6, utilize the landscape on the property to enhance privacy for the project and its neighbors. Number 7, study simplifying the fenestration openings. Okay.
Can I see that?
Sure. It's been a little while, so let's just,
Yeah.
maybe with the help of the vicinity map.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Sure. My name's Noah Greer. I'm with On Design Architects. Sure. So the property is almost a third of an acre right at the corner of Canada and Carpinteria Streets.
Okay.
It's not quite in the hills, I'd say, just behind the property, to the north of the property, the hills just start lifting up right behind it. I mean, literally the property behind this property becomes hillside.
Got it. Okay, do you want to address these comments one by one, or just
Sure.
go through?
Yeah, I think I have them all listed out here. Start with simplifying the architectural details. Many of the smaller windows were removed from the project.
Why don't you show us?
Sure. Just the majority of the comments that seemed pertain to building B, which is A22. And on the street-facing facades, there's quite a bit more architectural ornamentation on the last round, including at many of the sort of simpler architectural elements. Now, some of the windows were larger, and at the request of the board, the windows have been made smaller. May I ask, is that the last round?
Should be. Yeah.
That'll probably be helpful.
Can I pull it up?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Still working.
Thank you. So there have been very few changes to Building A, as it seemed that most of the comments related to Building B. So I'll flip to that sheet. Great. So starting with the street-facing elevation along Canada, you can see the sort of central element of the tower in the entryway with the larger windows, and then at this side of the building, the turrets that have been removed, some additional sort of architectural detailing removed as well. The location of the single and the double car garages was swapped. And that was helpful for maintaining the solar ordinance and still getting a little bit of outdoor deck space on that elevation. The north elevation, we sort of swapped the naming of the elevation, so that may be slightly confusing. I'll say the lower elevation here. Some slight changes from this side and removal of some of that ornamentation. Certainly, this elevation here, you can see that it's been simplified considerably with the removal of some of these little tower elements, the turrets, etc. And I think the primary change at this elevation was the addition of some additional deck space, which changes the elevation, and it also helps to push some of the second-story massing away from the property lines. And again, I'd say I'd probably emphasize that the two units surround quite an ample courtyard. We were lucky to have a larger property that could accommodate that.
Study simplifying the details, discuss that. Study eliminating some bedrooms and implementing some additional private open space.
Yeah, so let's. Hey, Sam. Hi. No problem. Let me make room for it. So in general, I'd say we essentially removed 2 of the bedrooms from Unit B. So those units are now down to 3-bedroom units. And that was done generally by changing the layout of the space.
Okay, so previously Unit 2 had how many bedrooms?
Previously, Unit 2 had 4 bedrooms, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Units 2 and 3, the bedrooms were reduced. Let me just double check the count on them. Oh, looks like I'll have to actually count them. Okay, I'm sorry, I did misspeak. So it looks like building 3.
You have 3 bedrooms.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay.
Looks
Just, so then it previously was 4 per units. Thank you.
nice big bedrooms.
Yes.
Okay. And then study implementing some additional private open space.
Right, so there's a considerable amount of additional private open space on the second floors in particular. The first floors, again, have a fairly ample deck. Second floors have, quite an ample patio space on the first floor, shared open space. Second floors have quite a number of additional private open space decks now. That, again, also helped articulate the massing and push it a little farther from the property lines.
Okay. Study possibly the possibility of lowering the second floor plate height.
Right, so in this instance, the second floor plate height was 9 feet. We really wanted to do our best to keep the second floor plate height at 9 feet because there's an intention to use trusses. And we felt that instead of lowering the plate heights throughout, we could lower certain elements of the building where they neighbored, where they were closest to the property lines. And a good example of that would be this bit of the building where you can see that we lowered the plate from the typical 9-foot plate that you have generally, and there it drops down to something closer to 8 as the building mass approaches the property lines.
That was symmetrical before.
I believe it was completely symmetrical. Yeah.
Okay. Utilize the landscape on the property to enhance privacy for the project and its neighbors.
So Dan Mathis is here to speak to that.
Good afternoon, members of the ABR. So in terms of privacy, we have an existing Eugenia hedge along the south property line that will be supplementing all the way along. This is a very large, probably 14-foot high and very thick portion of Eugenia. It's on our property. We'd like to continue that both ways and actually around the corner. There's also an existing oleander hedge on the eastern property that's very thick, but on the inside of that, leaving a little walkway space, we're going to have Eugenia hedge throughout this side, except for right here where we'll put some vines in along the fencing. Existing Eugenia clump here, which we're going to add to this point. Then we're going to drop it back down for the corner visibility. We're going to be adding some large trees in the middle. We do have a center courtyard that will be a shared use for outdoor activity for all 3 of the units. Seating, good social function for any and all of the owners, as well as barbecue. We're using Kentia palms throughout to kind of create, I think, a very nice wash of subtropical look to this architecture. We have bed planting and nice walkway circulation around kind of the center courtyard. Private space, again, is back here. There's no private space on this full corner. There's very large street trees, existing Melaleuca, existing Ficus nitida, or Eucalyptus spicifolia, excuse me. This is the ficus, and then a big Tristania. So there's very large trees and a lot of shade coming into the project. We want to create mostly a functional landscape, if you will, in that a lot of the trees are to be used for picking fruit. We've got a citrus area there, some more citrus here, another one here. So we're trying to get avocado and citrus as our functional theme, main plants, as well as using Kentia palms as a more vertical element with some of these tall walls. So the private patio spaces in the back, again, are separated by Eugenia, so I think there's quite a bit of privacy to the neighbors all the way around on both east and south side.
Okay. Study simplifying fenestration openings. Yeah. Discussed a little bit already.
So again, essentially no changes to building A. Changes to building B. I think it may be most evident on the elevation facing Carpinteria Street. Excuse me, I misspoke, it said Canada before. These garages open onto Carpinteria Street. Certainly, the power. And then I'd say, I mean, it's fair to say, I guess, the simplification was primarily of removing a large number of architectural details. I don't know necessarily that I could point to simplification of fenestration necessarily. Although there was an intention to keep the fenestration sort of a family.
Anything else you would like to add? Or
No, thank you.
okay. We have one request to speak. Michael Gorgita. Sorry about that. So if you, why don't you come on up?
Take a spot.
And sorry if you could relocate
Oh,
to
sure.
the front row. I got you. All right, you have
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yeah.
All right, my concerns on this project are the number of bedrooms, because when I first looked at the plans about 2 months ago, there was 14 bedrooms total. I don't know how many there is now. There was 5 for each of, I think it was, the main house was going to be 4, and then the new duplex was going to be 5 each. And right now, we are a half block from the high-density zone. And so parking outside of my house, I live right next to that, 111 South Canada. And parking is ridiculous now. People overflow from the high-density zone and park in front of my house and leave their cars there for a week. And then they come back and they move it when the street sweep is going to go through. So if there's going to be a lot of bedrooms, it's going to impact the parking all in that whole area. I also have a problem with just the way it looks. I mean, all these residences are 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1,600 square feet max. And all of a sudden we have this huge thumb sticking out in the middle of a 1930s, 1940s area. All the houses are old there. And, you know, I don't have anything against upgrading and stuff like that, but I think the project is way too big. It was a 2-bedroom house, and now it's going to be possibly 12 bedrooms. So that's my problems with it.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know what to say.
All right.
So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, anybody else wishing to address the board for this project? Close public comment. Okay, move on to questions. Howard, do you want to start?
Yes. So, just curious, so the existing residence is a shiplap siding and a 1-story, has 2 bedrooms. What is the stair in the back in this bedroom? This is the existing residence.
Let's point over here, guys.
It's the internal story that goes upstairs, I think, to the second story. Yeah.
So this building is connected to the new building?
It's like a covered walkway through between the garage and the house.
Let's
Okay, where do we see that?
let's orient over here.
Right here. This is the 2-story portion, and this is the existing house, am I right?
Okay, so you're changing the architecture of the existing house.
That's correct. Yes.
I see, okay. And then you are connecting this house to these 2 bedrooms. Is this a separate unit? Is this the house a separate unit?
Yes, it is.
This is one.
Yeah, so there'll be three units total, and this one will remain a freestanding Yeah.
I see. So each building is a two-story. You have units upstairs and units downstairs, and then the house.
Correct. Which is which would be 2
Now, the units
stories.
upstairs are now 3 bedrooms instead of 4,
Correct.
and the downstairs are also 3 instead of 4? Are they?
Well, they're bi-level units.
Oh, I see. All right.
3 total units, this one, and this one.
I see.
1, 2, 3, and they're all three two-story, including attaching to the existing house with the two-story
Okay.
connection right here, Howard, and they park underneath, and then you
Right,
walk across over to the two-story area.
Correct.
Above the garage.
And we realized that we could largely keep the massing, even the roof of the existing building, and it could still be architecturally consistent with the style of the site as a whole.
So I'd just like to be more clear on the second floor here.
So Howard, if
This
we're
is-
gonna point at anything, let's
Okay.
make sure we do it over here.
Okay, so this is second floor of this. So when you go up, so this is the connecting element to the upstairs of this unit.
Correct, which is shown right here.
I see.
Correct.
So this unit here has bedroom, 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 bedroom. That still has 4 bedrooms.
That's correct.
And this little tower here is on top of the stair there. This is right about here somewhere.
Let me make sure I don't speak out of turn. Yes, generally.
This is the north elevation. So through here to the street, this is the back. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Feature element.
And your plate heights are, like, for example, the first floor is, I see garage floor. And then the second floor is 11.6. And then the second floor plate is 20 foot 10, say 21 feet. Yeah. So I just wanted to get the information here. Questions?
What's the
Okay.
first, what do you think the first floor plate will be, or the first plate?
I believe we call out the first floor plate 11.6.
Yeah, so the first floor of the house is at plus 2.6.
Right.
So that actually is a 9-foot plate on the lower level. And I see that. Now, that 11.6 then goes all the way around the new element. So we're at 11, even though the downstairs of the new element is not at plus 2.6.
Correct.
Okay. So just to see what that elevation looks like. So in other words, this is, these are the buildings in back, more or less. So we're
Off Canada, yes.
Yeah, so the second floor here, for example, says it's at 10.4, not 11.6. And the first floor is 0, grade 0 minus 8 inches.
Right, because we don't have that raised foundation for building B.
Right. Those are all the questions I have.
Okay. David, you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. We can go to A2.1 right now. Look at building A. The first thing I was noticing was this balcony that's sitting over the garage on the south elevation.
Mm-hmm.
This is south, right? Because the
Yes.
site plan, I think, has them flipped, the orientations. This is south. Are we going to? This is south.
Let's call this south.
Cool. All right. So looks like there's little corbels that are popping off right below, supporting that deck structure. But then on the side view here, looks like they're removed. Are they?
Right.
Is the intention to follow this with?
The intention is to follow this elevation
Okay.
with the corbels.
And then how do you see that running off? Do you see it coming up flush with the exterior face of that balcony, or pulling back off the edge a little bit?
Probably pulling off slightly.
Okay. And then, since we're still on this elevation, this element here over the entryway, those rafters, I assume, are coming down at the same slope as the main roof.
That's correct.
What's the head height of over that element?
I would have to double check. I'd say at the top of the landing, though, it's clearly similar to
Yeah.
the height of that, so it's probably pushing 7 feet or so.
Was there ever any considerations of breaking that pitch at all, or was there a reason for this, just to kind of an ease of engineering? Yeah.
Probably yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'd say there's some utility in keeping it simple, but probably too we just
Right.
wanted to keep the massing down a little bit there. But that's certainly an option. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think I would touch on this before, was the existing glazing on the front building, because it's existing to remain. You guys are just trying to keep the existing sizes. Were there ever any studies to kind of reduce here and there?
Generally, we were hoping we could keep the bigger windows. The owner really liked having the bigger windows through there. So I'm certainly open to your comments if you think it's not working.
And then maybe we can jump to A2.2 now. This element here, that's a closet, right, behind that wall on the second level?
What goes?
Is it? Yes. How do I read that? It's this piece, isn't it?
Yes, I believe it is.
So that's
Yeah.
the projection
Yep.
right here, right? Mm-hmm. And then this is that little portion of that garage pulling past it?
Correct.
Okay. And then none of this is usable space off the master, right? It's just
That's
roofing.
correct.
Okay. And then this wraps around this direction and pulls back to, where's the north? I'm sorry, south. Is it going to be this here? Is that wrapping around the corner?
This wrapping around the corner?
Yeah.
That's the east side.
It's the north then. Is it? I guess when it turns around, which way are we going to look here? Is it part of? We're going to be looking at the east elevation and then south. So yeah, there to there. I think it's that same element, isn't it? As it pulls around?
Well, no, I'm turned around by our labeling.
Because here's the eave, yeah. And I think that's the rake on this side. Okay. What's that top of that parapet cap material going to be with these flat conditions?
We've been detailing with simple stucco finish with no separate metal cap.
Just a smooth rollover?
I'd say
mean,
generally a
tapered,
smooth
but-
roll, but
yeah,
tapered
okay.
to the inside.
Okay. And so no visible flashing or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay. And then on this elevation, I think here, and I believe here, these are the water heater closets, right?
Yes.
And so they're just showing as being louvered?
Yes.
Okay. And then is the material going to be any different? Because this material looks different than what was rendered before on the last round. Is there a change in door material now? Or is it just refined?
I'd
had
say in
slimmer
general, we'd like
profiles.
to go with wood doors with a darker stain.
Do we have the existing set anywhere? Or is it just buried in all this?
Since
Oh,
it's been
sorry.
since January, I can't remember what the doors were.
I don't remember. Sorry, I don't remember either. I was trying to see if. But here, it looks like it's just a little bit slimmer, like maybe they're
Oh, right.
clad. And
Yes.
it's still carrying through in some places, but then on this elevation, that French door looks more like a wood unit.
Right.
So I didn't know. Yeah. See, that one's looking like it was
Right.
more of a clad. Is there a consensus on what the material wants to be?
The intention is that we'd like it to be a wood door with a darker stain.
Okay. And then what about for the window units?
Probably a clad with a, I wouldn't say that we've determined the finish for the clad.
Okay. And then would that material be consistent with the building A, the front one, or would you do something different with the material up there?
I think in general we would try to keep it consistent, yes.
Okay. And then the last two questions would be for Sam.
Oh, yeah.
The permeable pavers in that gathering area, what do you see, what's the manufacturer on those?
I think it's Pacific Interlocking Paver, makes a real flush, very tight piece called HydroFlow.
Okay.
So it's a real nice, it's not a tumbled look, it's a real clean, almost like a wire cut grip, but it's actually sponge-like and would like water through it.
The Pacific, you said?
Pacific Interlocking Pavers, yeah, that's
Cool.
the manufacturer.
And then
For the center area.
Yeah.
I think, it's all in theme of this private courtyard use and cutting down and eliminating water and maintenance that we're all trying to do so diligently that's more sustainable and it is permeable as that paver mentioned.
Okay,
That's the intent.
cool. And then the last question was, with trees like the avocados or the citruses over here, how much clearance do you like to normally maintain around the base for like any kind of disturbance with like pathways and things like that?
Well, I think you can walk right underneath
Problem.
with a DG path or a gravel path close to the trunk, and then where you're showing mulch in a lot of those areas underneath the fruit trees and underneath the avocado trees. This one, of course, is more in the center. There could be a little bit of ground cover, but the walkway comes real close to it, within probably 4 feet of the trunks.
There's no real concern about the proximity or anything?
Not with a permeable
Okay.
paver and not with the amount of 3 to 4 feet around the trunk. I think it's okay.
Okay, cool.
Bigger concern will be to kind of train the lower limbs to go
As they move up.
so that you can clear when you're walking close by. Yeah.
Or pick them?
But and then that's the reason, so they're close enough to pick.
Yeah. Okay,
And utilize.
cool. Thank you, guys. No further questions.
Mr. Cunningham.
Okay, can we go to A2.2? These doors on north elevation. B and okay. Building B and west elevation of building B. What's the width? I see this, is this a painted surround?
The thinking is that it could be a tile, sort
Okay.
of decorative tile surround.
Okay.
And a 3-foot door.
Okay. And what's the width of the plaster between the door and the edge of that little tower element?
I couldn't tell you with certainty, but I
Okay.
can tell you it looks to be something like 6 inches.
Okay. The concern is that it looks skinny,
Gotcha. Yeah.
unsubstantial.
And I think, I understand that we could easily update that.
Okay. On the landscape plan / site plan, you'll have to forgive me because I've been away for a while, but what's our setback on the north property line? It looks awfully narrow.
1 moment, I'll have to pull the code.
Okay.
And I can answer if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's 5 feet, I believe, for habitable structures and 3 feet for non-habitable portions of the structure, like parking.
And you've got 3 feet there.
Correct.
Okay. Well, this is more a comment. I'm interested in knowing the detail for the permeable paving.
Sure.
Yeah, the depth.
Section through.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to that detail level.
Okay. And is there any reason why you do not have more height in the landscaping around the 2 interior property sides of the buildings?
Besides the hedge you're mentioning, more
Yeah.
vertical elements.
You know, you got a 2-story building.
Good point. Yeah.
Okay. Just a question to be answered
Yes.
at our next
Thank you.
meeting. I believe there's an access door here. I think I saw that on the elevations, but you don't show access to it through the landscaping. Again, that's more of a comment, sorry.
There's a
Kevin.
door here. Is there another one there?
I thought, well, maybe it was on the
Maybe it's in the wrong place.
plan view, overall site plan. Well, okay, you show it on the landscape plan, it does not show on this plan. My bad. Thank you. Presumably this is a required parking stall?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, do you feel uncomfortable about perhaps adding landscaping on one side of that stall? It's 11 and a half feet.
I think, what's the requirement in there? It would be 10? We could, but again, very indirect light because it's completely covered. It's an actual lid of a
Okay, so you've got, this
single
is
story
covered.
above that. It's
Okay.
complete. Well, from here to here, Bob, is covered.
Okay.
So any light in there would be very minimal for any kind of plant material. So it'd
Okay.
have to be very shade tolerant, and
Okay,
it's probably going to get trampled.
sure.
I mean, we could bend it around and soften this corner. I mean, there's a possibility to soften that edge a
Be
little
nice.
bit, which would be a nice touch.
Okay.
Okay.
On the site plan, it says 41% of the site is landscaped. How much of that is actual landscaping? Or are you including this patio in that figure?
I bet that patio's included. I'm not positive because I didn't run the numbers. I can check, but I imagine that permeable use area is included as landscape
Okay,
amenity
okay,
I believe it is.
because
but
we
not
have the
driveway.
trees and some of the planting and the
okay.
integration of permeable pavers.
And have you accommodated for all of your trash and recycling needs in that trash enclosure, or am I missing another one somewhere on the site?
I think that's the intention, to centralize it.
That's
I
correct.
think we can study the capacity of that.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do.
Oh, that's a symbol for a plant. Probably
I see.
Teucrium,
Okay.
just plant symbols and codes.
I have one question for you. So, from this deck, that's happening here, property line's here. What's going on over here on the neighboring lot? And then the same question for this deck and this deck. What are we looking at on our neighbors' lots?
Let me see if I might have an aerial.
You have an aerial? I think I've seen it, I just don't know exactly from memory what kind of trees are in that backyard or what. That one section of Eugenia is really big,
Tiny area.
in magnifying glass.
And
to see
we
it.
can see if we got some email when I look through.
Yeah, of course.
This is a pretty rough start, but it's a start. Property lines approximately through here.
Orient it this way. So
So again, is that section of Eugenia right there, and then we're looking at a mass of a tree on this side of the property, and then there's storage on this side. So there's really not a whole lot of tree work. This is driveway to the back and terms of the adjacent south property line. We have that big Eugenia hedge that we're going to utilize and add to. And then Bob's brought up maybe some more vertical elements in this side yard area, but we don't have any other trees that I know of, and this is yard space in the back.
Okay, and then this hedge is on this property?
There's an oleander hedge all along this eastern property, and there's a giant jacaranda here. So there's two large trees here.
These are both on the neighbor's.
These are both on the neighbor's side, yeah.
Okay, so there's,
We'll be slicing right in here.
it appears this is the house next door?
Yes.
And then backyard?
Yard.
Okay, so that puts your one of the decks is approximately here. The one is in there somewhere.
Yeah, maybe something like this.
That's for the concrete, no. Yeah, it would be similar in that we'd let it flow through the paver into the aggregate, but we can bring that.
Let's see. Supposed to go with that plan, wouldn't it be? So that deck is looking out at roughly over this part. This deck is sort of looking back over here.
Correct.
This deck is more in this zone. And this is more oriented out towards the street.
It's kind of hard to tell, but this mass behind the street tree in Melaleuca is a large mass of jacaranda that's right here. I think that building is this one back further against the corner,
Okay.
just as an orientation. So tall building, looks like it's two-story right here. That's adjacent to that corner on this, what's that, the southeast side?
Single story.
That's single? It looks like it's got stacked windows, that's what I can tell.
Okay, those are my questions. Let's start with comments. Howard, would you like to start?
This is the first time I've seen this project. And I did not review the tapes on the first time, which is the 17th, I believe. That's when this came here.
In January.
Right.
Correct.
So I don't know whether that disqualifies me.
No, so this is it says third concept review on the agenda, but that's incorrect. This is the second time this has come before
Okay.
the board, so you're fine.
Right. So before I make a comment, so you chose Spanish colonial revival for the building, including really changing the architecture of the craftsman. What was the reason for that?
Quite frankly, I think a desire of the owner to go with this style, but as well, we thought it gave us a bit more flexibility in terms of pushing and pulling the massing around the site.
So this first comment would be that the architecture is very nice. I mean, it's faithful to Spanish colonial design formula. It's fine. I find that rather than it being a Spanish cottage, it's like a grand villa. And the architecture that you have chosen, the style, rather than scaling down to the cottages that are in the neighborhood, is purporting to be rather pretty grand with towers and, things flying around, and it's a little grand for my taste. Not taste, but for the project. This is not about, and the neighborhood. I think, for example, in looking at the floor plans, although you have reduced the number of bedrooms, the suites and the total area subtended by the bedroom suites is really quite large, and certainly greater than are affordable. This is a very these bedrooms up here, for example, this is one that's quite this master bath here is rather, really is not at all efficient. It's very overkilled, over-designed. 2 closets, an unused space here, private toilet, shower. I think that those things in each unit tend to make this project become bigger. And I would ask that you study those again to reduce the number reduce the square footage of your units and to reduce the size, bulk, and scale of the buildings. I think that the concern about too many bedrooms on this property is a valid one. And I also, in that same breath that I say that it's got too many bedrooms and they're too big, landscaping is very nice. It's a very livable place. But it's just that it's not in keeping with the cottage scale grain of the neighborhood. And it would seem that it would be, you could still do the conversion to the Spanish colonial style. But it's just that it's something more modest, more cottagey than villa-like. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Howard. David?
I think I agree with most of Board Member Witosh's statements about the not necessarily the style. I think the style, for the most part, is pretty spot on. I think there's little things I can comment on in a minute, but the consistency within itself is there. There are other elements, so I don't know if it's in regard to bedroom, if they get reduced or not, but I also think there might be other tricks you can do that can maybe help bring down the appearance of this massive villa-esque kind of property that's starting to kind of take form. Most notably, I think on the first building, on Building A, I know there's the existing openings there for all the glazing. And I think this was a previous comment that we had too, was to study how that glazing ties in with the style of the Spanish Revival. There's still very large openings. That's not necessarily really consistent, so it does really read to me as a home that was once something else, like a cottage, and then replastered. I think there's some elements that you can maintain the glazing, and other elements where you probably want to shrink down or I would recommend maybe shrinking down the openings and providing more variety and smaller sizes of glazing so it does start to appear more consistent with the Spanish Revival style. Even if you go to A 2.1, I can give you some examples here. For instance, that was one I kind of saw last time as being, it's not something you really typically see in a Spanish Revival. It just kind of stands out of place. That's the other one too, especially that arrangement with the smaller casement, the larger format, and that was the third, is this guy. Even that one too, that really dominates that particular part of the element as you read it back from the elevation, even though I know we don't always read the entire elevation on its own. That almost goes the full height of that wall before it hits that corner, which, again, I think you could work on that sizing, maybe provide more vertical units rather than horizontal. That will even start to give the appearance of a diminished scale, I think, which will maybe help the project. Even that element here too, I know it's a little bit more refined, but I think the overall size in that case, what was more successful is I think those smaller little apertures that you did on the other tower, breaking them up. I think that length right there, it's something about that proportion of the overall massing of that tower in regards to that window, I think are kind of off. So there's a little play, I think, that just kind of needs to be refined further. That's for Building A, I think. The roof lines, things like that, those look pretty consistent and they work really well. I think when you go to the second building, though, there's a simplicity of the parapets that is really nice, I think, and especially how you run them back to walls and you pull up and start to scroll back to that return is working well. But I think there's almost a loss of character there from what you had to this. It's a very, I think, 100% down to zero, that stripping down of the detail completely. So I might even add, because those long runs of these parapets here and as they wrap around the corner, they're going to become very noticeable. Even if they're not usable roof decks, you're still going to see that massing as it wraps around the corners. I think consideration of, other examples around town, there's tons of them, whether it's defining through, pulling off the wall with some more plaster to provide, a sightline or a reveal even, or even, sometimes people do the flip tile pattern, which is very popular. I think a little bit of detailing, though, might help to kind of, again, not have those forms, those bulkiness of those corners as they're reading right now appear so heavy. And I think it probably needs that at these bigger flat elevations. I know these trees are rendered to kind of cover up these blank spots, but here and then right here with this closet, this is going to project off that wall. And I think if you're projecting off the wall like that, to have a big wall face and then not have any kind of window or door or something like that, I think it kind of reads like as a work in progress, like there should have been something there maybe. So I don't know, I'm not going to say, you need to flip the program on the inside, but I think somehow you need to look at that, maybe to explore like what's done there. And if it's not a penetration of some sort, maybe it's a surface kind of detail that kind of helps that wall face not just stick out like a blank wall. So we talked about the massing in the garage. The corbels, I would just kind of touch on that again. I know you already discussed that, but if you can define kind of what the size in those corbels are, because they still look a little thin right now, but if it's projecting off as far as it looks like in that side elevation, they probably have to be a little bit beefier,
Right.
Like 6x8s or something like that, just to start to read as more of a dominant element. And I think when you start to see that, my concern is that it actually starts to crowd the top of that garage head a little bit now. So I don't know if the garage head gets pulled down or if the sizing of those corbels start to get refined a little bit more, but I'm worried that with your deck assembly and your corbels as close as they are to the head of the garage, it might start to look a little crowded right there. Because the garage detail is nice and the balcony is nice. I think that resolution of how they start communicating with each other is going to be important.
Okay.
And then I guess in regards to character, I would say, I already touched on the glazing, maybe more consistency or identifying what the actual door and window material is going to be in the next round. Maybe a sample to kind of see what that reads like too, of the clad versus the wood. I know wood's expensive and it looks great, but you're going to start to see certain clad products are going to have heavier muttons and sashes and things like that. And I think even that in relation to how your glazing gets resized is really going to start to have those elevations read a lot sharper or more accurate. So I think that might even help the next round. The last couple of things I think are just more comments at that covered carport between the garage and Unit 1. It's noticed on the site plan that there's a fence at the back of that carport, right? Kind of maybe for security or something.
With the gate.
Yeah, like a gate. Maybe I'll bring this up, sorry. Right here.
Okay.
It's not shown in the elevation, but I think if it's going to be a wood fence or something, I think that relation, that wood fence at the back is going to look like it was kind of done as an afterthought by the owners maybe. I think because it's being done right now, maybe something more of plaster that would keep in line with that exterior material of this garage and that unit would kind of help tie back a little bit because you're going to read that at the back of the carport. That's a comment. And then the other one would be maybe considering flipping the trash enclosure doors away from, there's a couple windows right here in this unit. I think with those doors opening there, they're going to be annoyed to see that kind of stuff. So maybe it gets flipped to that spot, even though that's not ideal because then it affects the avocado. So it's a comment. I don't know if other people feel that way, but it might be just something where if I was living in that front unit, I wouldn't be pumped to look out my kitchen or dining room to see the garage doors or the garbage cans. And then the last thing I noticed on the survey was on the south elevation, I think they were calling it this. There's like a 2-foot change in grade between your property and the adjacent neighbors based on the survey. And so maybe, and I'm noticing the grade is going from up here down this way. So maybe for consideration in the next round, if there's site drains, maybe somehow along that property to kind of mediate what's going to happen there as the drainage starts to happen. It might pour off your property down to the neighbors. I know it's not necessarily a requirement, but future long-term thinking, it might be something that could just save future headaches for the tenants when that happens. Those are my comments.
Yeah, we need to study that. It does go that way, but we won't concentrate in any way.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to make sure of that.
that's it.
Okay.
Okay. Any good comments so far regarding the elaborate detailing? This is probably going to happen frequently. Size of the project, in terms of it's a little grander than the neighborhood, and I agree that it could be toned down a bit. I don't object to the Spanish architecture. I think it's well done. I think it's just a little too elaborate. I agree with regard to the fenestration, preserving the fenestration on the existing building while trying to convert it to Spanish style. It doesn't work, so that needs to be, I believe, restudied. I don't understand the need for the tower elements. I think they make the buildings bigger unnecessarily. The trash enclosure location, I agree, should be restudied. On sheet A2.2, I pointed out the narrow width at the edge of the utility cabinet doors. That, I believe, needs to be thickened. I think with regard to the central garden patio area, the jacaranda tree ought to have quite a bit more open ground around it, or it'll eventually end up causing problems for the paving. The screen planting on Kenyatta Street between the garages and the sidewalk and the street, Callistum and Little John, is it your intention to make that a hedged plant ultimately?
Ultimately, to keep it at 42 inches in that range would be, I think, the intent.
On the corner here,
Okay.
to be specific?
No, it's
Right here, across here, right?
yeah. We're on your right, Kevin, along Kenyatta Street.
These.
There you go.
Okay.
I would just encourage you to come up with a material that doesn't require hedging. You're adding a lot of hedge planting already to match the existing Eugenia. I understand that from an aesthetic standpoint, but from a sustainability standpoint, I think it would be better if you could reconsider the callistemon in favor of something that will grow vertically, will reach the height you want without having to be sheared.
Trimming, yeah.
Yeah, reduce green waste. I think on the eastern edge of the project, I understand that on the north side you've already got some existing trees you can take advantage of on neighboring properties for height, but I think on the eastern edge and also mid-lot, you really only have two substantial trees, two jacarandas, and with a two-story piece of architecture, I think it would be good to have more tall trees. You've got a generous number of citrus and avocados. I think you probably need to either reduce those in favor of some taller evergreen or deciduous, just landscape trees, or consider doing the same with the Kentia palms. I like the idea of the Kentias. I think they certainly work well with the architecture. I just think that we need more foliage, at the second story level.
On the boundaries.
On the boundaries, and also, views from the street, and maybe even within the property itself. Just, take a look at that. But I think you need 3 or 4, well, let's say 2 or 3 more good second story height trees. Number 6. Okay, got that. You're specifying mulch or decomposed granite in the parkway strips. Those are certainly appropriate materials, but I would really like to see, and I think the neighborhood would benefit from, some landscaping in those parkway strips. It's, like to see if you can get some kind of planting on the this corner of unit 1 to give us a little bit of relief there on that.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. I think my only additional comment would be to study these deck locations, and my concern is privacy impacts to the neighbor. Seems like this deck, an alternate would be in this location. and that would just let this roof continue back and simplify that detailing. You already have this parapet area. You know, and I know we asked for additional private open space, but maybe some of these are just not that effective as far as locations. So I would be in favor of eliminating these two anyway and relocating this one to that location. And I think everybody else covered everything. So I just wanted to go back to the previous comments and make sure we don't want to carry anything forward with this. I mean, we've reiterated some of these. Simplifying details and architectural features, eliminating some bedrooms. I do feel that Howard is correct. There's some sort of extra bulk in this that could be tightened up a little bit here and there, and I think that would help reduce the overall mass of the project.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just caution the board not to make a motion. In reading the motion from the last time, that one about reducing the number of bedrooms really stuck out to me as something that is inappropriate and should not really be. I mean, absolutely talk about reducing size, bulk, and scale, and I think you've made it pretty apparent during the meeting what needs to happen in order for that to be done, but I would not make it as part of the motion.
Okay. All right, well, let me summarize the comments, and then we can try and get a motion. So, for the most part, everyone feels that the style of the buildings is a bit grand for the neighborhood, and that includes some of the elements, like the tower elements on Building A. Let's see, yeah, and how do we say this without getting ourselves in trouble? There appears to be ways of reducing the square footage in the floor plans, which could result in a less overall mass of the building. It's not in the overall design is not in keeping with the cottage feel of the neighborhood. Study existing glazing sizes. Study reducing those or modifying the existing openings to bring them in, to make them more in keeping with the style proposed. Provide door and window details, and I would add to that that the board feels the project would be better if these windows were recessed and not a nail-on product. Restudy trash location. We have some landscape comments here. Provide more open area around the jacaranda. On Kanata, at the driveway, study alternate screening methods that are not hedges. Provide more substantial and larger trees on the perimeter, particularly the eastern property line, and possibly within the courtyard itself. Provide landscape and parkway, not just ground cover, or not just mulch or an alternate. Provide additional landscaping at Unit 1 around by the carport, bedroom and carport. Does somebody want to make that motion? Study the site drainage and provide a site plan with drainage.
I have one more.
Okay.
In
Do you want to make that
addition to-
motion?
No, I do not, but I just,
Okay.
with regard to additional trees along the east property line, you do have that retaining wall. So work together with the architect, Sam, to make sure that what you specify for that location is going to either work with the retaining wall or that the retaining wall's footing can be modified to accommodate the roots of the trees. Avoid future problems. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And if I wanted to add something in the discussion, do I do it now or after?
We need somebody to second it.
Okay.
Okay. Under
Under
discussion?
discussion, I would just add to the comments to study blank wall masses and just explore either scaling or detailing to kind of reduce the impact of those where they occur.
Is that okay with the seconder?
Yes.
Is that an indefinite continuance?
What would you like?
I would suggest it because I think that there might be some changes to site planning that may need staff review before coming back.
Okay. So that would be an indefinite continuance. So we have first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right,
Thank you.
I didn't bring a scale, no, Howard.
Yeah.
I brought that over.
You have two.
Those are ours.
You need that.
I just need one of those, right? Yes.
So I have just one set of plans. Okay. The other two are the black ones.
40 minutes left, so we'll be done now.
Just ask less questions.
And then you can flip forward.
Okay. 1220 and 1222 San Andreas Street. Could you? All right, proposal for a multifamily residential unit using AUD incentive program and a voluntary lot merger of the parcels 1220 and 1222 San Andreas Streets. This proposal includes demolition of existing duplex and 3 single-family dwellings and construction of 7 new buildings comprising 5 duplexes and 2 single-family dwellings for a total of 12 new dwelling units. 6 buildings will have 2 stories and 1 building will have 3 stories. The unit mix will include 5 3-bedroom units, 6 2-bedroom units, and 1 1-bedroom unit, ranging in size from 673 to 1,184 square feet with an average unit size of 996 square feet. The density on this 29,291 square foot merged parcel will be 18 units per acre. General plan designation of medium-high residential, 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. There will be 14 uncovered and 3 covered parking spaces, total of 17 spaces, 12 covered bicycle spaces, excavation and fill of 1,196 cubic yards will be balanced on site. Proposed removal of 9 trees. Total development on site will be 13,313 square feet. Project will also address zoning violations. Okay. Let's see. So this is, you guys are here for final review.
Yes.
All right. Let's see, what comments did we have last time?
Could we state their names for the record, please?
Yes, please.
I'm Chuck McClure, landscape architect.
Great.
Tim Corder, architect.
Shelby Messner, planner.
Again. There you go.
Shelby Messner, planner.
Okay. Let's see, what did we have to say last time? Continued, okay. So let's see, the last time we saw this was 7:31? Wow, okay. So, I'll just read the motion really quickly. The board appreciated the quality and consistency of the design. We appreciate the landscape and effort put into being as close to 100% drought tolerant as possible. The gray plaster should be white to match the rest of the building finish. And the board made CEQA findings. Okay. So, welcome. Have you made any changes to the elevations, plans, or anything that we should look at first?
There is two very minor changes. Do you want to start with those?
Sure.
Okay. So on the site plan, we're going to look at building F. And building F, the footprint got just a very little bit larger. I think it got 18 inches larger along the north here. So that was the one change.
Grew in this direction?
It grew in this direction, and then the whole building shifted this direction 24 inches. That was the change that happened at building F. And then at buildings A and B, we added a decorative gate at the elevations. So when we look at the elevations, we'll see that. And actually then the last change was this pedestrian walkway change in paving material. Before it was along the south edge of the driveway, and now it's down the middle of the driveway. So those are the three changes since last time.
Okay. Do you want to run through the color board? And
sure.
While we look at the elevations and everything?
Yeah, so the design concept, if you remember from before, was that we have the 7 buildings. The 4 buildings in the front have essentially the same floor plan, which then gets mirrored and rotated. So this design concept where they look like single-family dwellings, but they're duplexes. So that same kind of design concept pushes forward into the exterior materials and the detailing, where the buildings share details among all 7, but then there are other details that are shared amongst 3 or 4 buildings, and then there are some architectural details which are unique to one particular building. So in terms of the material board, the light fixtures are consistent between the buildings. The roof tile is consistent between the buildings. The white plaster is consistent between the buildings. But then there's a difference between, in terms of the awnings. You know, certain buildings have this awning fabric, other buildings have this awning fabric. And then the windows between the buildings are either the red or the chocolate brown.
Okay. Why don't we look at that while we're chatting about it?
What is the stucco color? Is that here on this?
It's just a white.
Yeah.
Cream, white?
No, it's
Navajo
the white. It's
Crystal white.
crystal white, La Habra crystal white.
Okay. Is that like a North Pole ice white?
Yeah, it's
Santa Barbara white.
It's a pretty white. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so here we're looking at the elevations for Building A, which is the south building closest to the street. This elevation faces the drive out, but you'll see the gate, which was added for security reasons, so you didn't have a stair with an area that wasn't visible before someone entered the stair, so that allows us to protect that stair. You see some images that capture the architectural detailing. This color right here Yeah, it happens here. So the guardrail between the different buildings, sometimes it's cast iron, or wrought iron, sorry, which we'll see. On 2 buildings, it's wood. So you're seeing that wood color here, which is this wood color right here, that accent color on the wood. Otherwise, the timber elements are typically this dark brown color. And then each of the buildings have a unique cupola or faux chimney element. So those are unique among all 7 buildings. So this one is inspired by a Julia Morgan project. And then otherwise, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Each one is different?
Yeah, so in all the buildings, we've got a different sort of cupola element. That's the primary unique detail.
Signature.
Like, yeah, for each building, yeah. So it's just... So this is the elevation that faces the street, and we can look at the color of elevations if you want. But you've got some decorative wrought iron elements. We found this door that we can get that's made by Gerald Wen, which we can get with these decorative
those wood
iron
dowels?
elements. What was that?
Are those wood dowels or metal?
Metal, yeah.
Clavos.
Clavos, yeah, thank you, that's the right word.
What color are the wood shutters?
The wood shutters are cedar, so they are not painted. They're natural, yeah, wire brushed, yeah. So, building B now. This is the street elevation. This is the gate at building B that I mentioned. So we've got the same light fixtures on this building, but this one has its own unique faux chimney element.
And the intent is that this will be terracotta rounds in there?
Yeah.
Or is that a grill element?
Yeah, terracotta.
Like this? Or
They're round. These are terracotta rounds for that detail. Yeah. These are sort of the rear elevations of this building.
show us a detail of your rake tile.
So here's the rake detail, which is the same on all the buildings. The eave detail, there's two different details that we're switching off between buildings. One is a simpler, where it's just like a bent edge, and then the other one is articulated a little bit more. So we have two different eave details that we're going to use.
Since we're in the details, you want to flip through the windows?
Sure. Yeah, we just have the exterior plaster that comes back to the window face. And then here's some of those cupola details. We also have a variety of, I don't know what they're called, but like these gable end terracotta details. So this one's pretty standard, that you see all the time. There's a few other ones that are a little less standard, which I think are going to be fun to try. So this one is like a recessed box that gets clad in terracotta, and then you set the mission tile sort of on edge to create that. And then in some cases, instead of just doing the 3 or the 4 round terracotta tile, we're going to put an iron cross with it. So you'll see on the elevations that there's a mix of these gable end details And then there's either the wood guardrail, which we'll look at in a second, or the wrought iron guardrail. So that's what we're looking at here is the wrought iron guardrail detail, where in some cases we have a Juliet balcony where there's the wrought iron apron and the clavos that decorate that. And then details for the wrought iron rejas and the shutter detail. Some stair details, and then here's the wood guardrail detail. So that's like that's a flat 1x material that's cut out in that shape. And then we've got some, interior and exterior stairs on the project. So we have a couple different stair details in terms of how we're dealing with that stair tread. It's either white plaster or we're tiling that. The riser, that stair riser.
Are these indicated as anywhere in your material board as far as what these tiles are, or what this painting is?
No, we haven't indicated the decorative tile on our material board, but we do have images of what's going to inspire that decorative tile work. So you see an image there that'll happen here at the jamb of that gate doorway, and then. Let's go to build. We haven't looked at building C yet. We'll skip to building C. So this was the comment about the gray plaster. We were showing this gray plaster along the edge of this stair. So the detail now is just white plaster. Oh, thanks. And I'm just going to quickly go to the color elevation so we can just remind ourselves of what those look like.
That'd be helpful.
So this is the street elevation, and then these are the two courtyard elevations looking north and south as you come down that central drive aisle. So building D, so it's, this one has its own unique sort of tower element or cupola element, but then otherwise you see some similar detailing. And then here's an image of tile at the stair riser. Building E is the 3-story building that's towards the rear of the lot, and it's got these garage doors that go into the bicycle storage. You can see here an image of the that recessed
Where's that?
tile detail. I'm not. You mean where in the world is it? I'm not sure. I can't remember right now, but we're not proposing stone around it. It's white plaster, but that's that detail, which I think is going to be a nice detail.
All your wrought iron work going to be solid?
Yes.
You're using two-piece mission tile?
So what we're doing with the mission or with the roof tile is what we're proposing, and what I've been told is that the board has approved this before, where we do the mission tile triple starter stacks in any visible location, and then we infill with the S tile in locations that aren't visible. So and then we also will put some random mission tile like stacking in the field. So that's what we're proposing for the roof tile. So it'll look like the traditional mission tile
Do you
installation.
call that out anywhere?
Yeah.
I think we
On the exterior material index, it's called out terracotta roof tile, one-piece S tile with mission tile, triple stack, starter, faux mission tile installation, and then we got the spec for the manufacturer.
Okay, and then do you also specify in the field here what the extra random tiles?
You mean I haven't specified in the drawings like what percentage or how that gets worked out.
Frequency.
Yeah, I haven't specified that
Okay.
in the drawings.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, maybe I just we could look at the last building, Building G, just real quick, and then.
And then landscape.
Oh, and landscape. So, Building G, it's more of the same, really.
So you're having some commonality between the buildings in details like this and like this and so forth.
Exactly. So, there's a lot of similar detailing and materials, like, the white plaster, the roof is the same on every building. And then there's a lot of similar details in terms of how we're treating like the rake, and then the eave it's either one or two profiles at the eave. So there's a lot of common detailing, and then we do a few things in each building that's unique, like the cupola thing that I mentioned. And that just fits the design concept of this like rotated mirrored floor plan and the commonalities, but uniqueness that we're trying to give to each building. All right, so we can conclude the architectural.
Right at the end.
Next sheet or this sheet?
I'll just hit this real briefly. This is the tree removal. You can see that there's a number of these trees that are not significant or are going to be, proposed to be taken out. And then you can see our totals. We're putting back many, so a net increase of 33. And then remember, this is the big California sycamore that we're saving. We're trying to save. It's, this is permeable concrete. And then this is a non-permeable, or that's a paver. I believe that, so we're permeable in both cases, and we'll see if that tree can, and we're also irrigating under the paving. So that's our existing, existing tree plan. And then for landscape, it's in this modern era, there's not a ton of landscape because of just this urban living condition, but I've specified things that are long-lived. In these negotiations with the Creeks Department, at first I had some things that were not 100% drought tolerant, and then in these sort of talks and negotiations, and some of these creek plants can't be drought tolerance. They asked that I tighten this up to be 100% drought tolerant, so we are. And you can see my my square footages. It all works out. See somewhere I have a. So the Creeks Department's happy with it. There's that sycamore tree that's going to stay, and then this whole area back here by the creek. We have Larry Hunt, the biologist, and he gave us this list, and I haven't. It's just being handled with an area, and then these plants will come to the site and get arrayed out. So we're not showing individual plants. Go ahead. Oh.
Does that include your?
Oh, yeah, let me just, so we're irrigated, and we're going to put some irrigation under the paving for that tree. And then we're just kind of noted and et cetera, so details. And so, yeah, complete, that's it.
I haven't seen this, so I'm not really able to make any comments. But you have a question,
So we're in questions now, right?
We are now in questions.
Thank you.
Nope. Hold on.
We have to do that before we go to questions.
If anyone from the public would like to address the board on this project, please step forward. Seeing none, close public comment.
Okay. Are these existing street trees, Chuck?
Yes.
What are they?
Magnolia, grandiflora.
Okay. Would you be able to accommodate any more trees, do you believe? within
Well,
the Parkway
the
strip?
thing, like,
What's our scale here, 1/8?
yes.
Okay.
I don't think so. These are pretty good sized pansies, and then the root, like we
Sure.
can't even plant very close to them. That's why it's spacey. But I don't believe so.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Okay. Howard, questions?
I have no questions.
David.
I was looking on the somewhere in the front of the site. I think it was saying vinyl doors and windows.
Yes, that's correct.
Has that been approved from prior? Was that submitted as vinyl always? I was trying to look back in the minutes and I didn't see it anywhere in the motions.
I brought the previous set of drawings if you'd like.
If you have them too, I just didn't know if you guys remember off the top of your head or if you.
I don't remember specifically. I mean, this is the first time we're showing them.
Yeah, we
but
haven't showed a material board before.
Yeah, and then I noticed in this schedule it was calling them out, but I don't remember seeing. I looked back in the motions and none of the last couple, like 3 of them, called out vinyl. This is the last set.
So it would probably be on the exterior elevations. There'd be a schedule, like an exterior material schedule that might
Those are
call it out. But I might not have it because it would generally might not have addressed that.
Any of these or no? Where would the schedule be for on the
It
list?
would have been on the exterior, either this sheet or the exterior elevations that you were just on. So if it's not on either of those, then it wasn't included in the set.
I think that since it was just our second review meeting, it wasn't put on those plans.
Okay. And you said there was no material board submitted for the last reviews?
Right,
Okay.
that's correct.
What was that question?
It's calling out vinyl for the windows, and so I didn't notice it in the motion, our last couple motions. I wasn't sure if it was a new item that was submitted or if maybe it just wasn't picked up or outwardly stated before.
I think it just wasn't outwardly stated.
Unless, do you want to look through here and maybe see if there's any area where there's?
I
there might
kind of
be?
doubt that it's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that would be my first question is, do you have some kind of sample or a detail inside like what that profile looks like of the?
I mean, I don't know if I.
Oh, I do have it.
So this is the Gerald Wen premium vinyl profiles, and
This way. Sorry. is all the same series.
Yeah, which one are we looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah. These are showing different thicknesses of glass, and then otherwise it looks like the profile is the same, except for the divided light.
Are you doing SDL or true divided light?
This is the window right here.
Yeah,
The stick-on mullion, not a divided light.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the one that we're doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the garage door, what's the material of that guy? This,
It's going to be painted, so it'll just be paint grade and then painted, and
Wood.
yes.
Awesome.
And I wanted to show. I didn't actually show the image, but what we're proposing is it to be. Or we saw the image, but I didn't highlight it. What we're proposing is it to be decoratively painted. So we look at building F. The client, the developer, has done this on other projects where he will hire an artist to decoratively paint the garage doors. So that's what we're proposing.
where does that occur?
Oh, at these garage doors, and then also the garage doors at Building E that give access to the covered bicycle parking. So there's 2 locations where that occurs.
So,
But yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No.
I just so are they gonna? Is that the accurate layout, or is that the accurate layout?
This is the accurate layout.
So they're not gonna have this round top to them and the paneling, like on the stiles and rails.
No, they're going to be. We have the.
I think the photo's on the.
Do you have a photo on the board? Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's going to look like. But it'll be decoratively painted.
Is the, sorry, go ahead.
Oh.
Are the colors called out anywhere for like the base?
The base will be this color.
Okay.
But we haven't called out the color of the decorative painting.
So, just curious, the decorative painting, does that mean you're going to paint every alternate board a different color, or going to paint squares over vertical panels, or?
Well, I mean, we haven't contracted with the artist yet, but it means that the artist will do. What we're planning is the artist will do something like this. Will be some kind of decorative.
Over these materials?
Yeah, over this material. Yeah, in this color. Yeah.
Okay. And you had mentioned that the S-tile detail that you want to do would just be along the perimeter of all the buildings, and then the bodies would be at every location would be S-tile on the body, and then the perimeter would be the clay at every building, or just certain ones?
Yeah, at every building it would be that. Yeah.
And then last question was, in the report, I think there was something about the discussions back and forth with you guys about the top of bank and the 35-foot setback.
Mm-hmm.
Did your building shifting affect that 35-foot setback that they established, or is that all good?
It's all outside of the setbacks, and we've gotten approval through
That's all done.
Creeks.
Not our
Purview?
scope anyway, so
Okay.
stay out of that.
Don't want to touch it. I think one thing we probably could ask, though, hopefully, is that the 9 trees, there was another mention in that same report about they had concerns about the 9 existing trees on site that were in the middle of the property, which I think you located. How did that get resolved with their concern about the trees being removed and what was being
All was fine.
replanted?
It's really just a variety of rotten trees, beat up avocados. Frankly, there's nothing significant except for that sycamore, and we are saving that.
And are they okay with this now, or is it still one of those things where you guys think they're
I'm not
nothing?
sure.
And it's,
Did anyone officially give us a nod?
I think that we got the okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay, cool. And that's it.
Dirty old rotten trees.
No further questions.
Okay. Bob, you had your shot already. I don't have any questions. Let's go to comments.
So this project has been coming along very nicely, and you're really very almost there. A few things. With regard to the roof tiles, it is very important that you stipulate that the tiles be either doubled or tripled rakes, ridges, and eaves. Also, the eave detail that you have is not really consistent with the rich detailing that you have in the wrought iron. If you tell me that the wrought iron is going to be solid bars, solid pieces, there's quite a bit of resources going into the decorative ironwork, and that is great. But in order for the eave detail to have the scroll work, it's a curve of the stucco over into the roll for this vintage type of architecture, you would need to study that eave so that it rolls more. I think you say the stucco is white, and I believe you, but I would like to see that white in juxtaposed to all these different materials that you have here. Also, the stucco, the finish of what kind of is it smooth? Is it George Washington Smith kind of a style? Is it rough dash, smooth dash, small dash, whatever? I know what I think it would be nice if it was George Washington Smith. They call that a certain type of a finish. The railings that I saw, wrought iron. By the way, I love the wood railings, and I love that the balusters are that color. It's going to be, it makes it sing. The railings, they need another element. They're a little boring. They're just rods and knuckles, basically bars and knuckles, staggered knuckle. You need something else, like a twist or some other thing in there. It's a little monotonous. And also, again, consistent with the very ornate detailing of these crosses at the attic vents and so forth. I have one comment about the awnings. I like these colors. It'd be great if you had an awning that maybe a stripe or something that had the green in it, so that instead of all awnings being kind of this shade, that maybe you had one that had some striped green or something. I don't know quite how to say this, but Jeld-Wen makes some great windows, and they're not cheap. But when you opt for vinyl windows, somehow the vinyl windows, and I see that they're deep set and it looks nice, just don't, you seem like you've got a lot of money going into the ironwork, and it seems like the vinyl windows aren't really on the same par as the wrought iron detailing. It'd be really nice if you could somehow transfer some of that investment over to the windows and get Jeld-Wen's metal windows somehow. It's just a comment. And the last thing, the garage doors, I'm all for artists doing their thing, but I think when you go to the trouble to have a beautiful wood door with whatever design is in the door with paneling and so forth, I think for an artist to come along and superimpose an art piece over that wood paneling seems somewhat, it's too bad that we're going to lose the wood character, and it will become something cosmetic. Even though a famous artist might do it, it seems to detract from the true nature of the door itself. Maybe there's another way to get an art element into the project that somehow doesn't move these doors away from. I mean, my understanding is that you would do this kind of a painting over this kind of a door, and if that were true, I would not support that. I could not support that. I think that That, and then with regard to the S-style, again, you have to stipulate rakes, ridges, and eaves, otherwise they don't get it. That's all I have.
Okay, David.
Yeah, I think the project is, overall, it's really successful. The overall, just I think the constraints you have with the site, with the creek and stuff, they've looked pretty challenging. I think you guys have done a good job from landscaping to the architecture of laying out the site, massing, scale, things like that. So I think that's all should be noticed. I think I have a couple like little issues on things. I think one is the JELD-WIN. I think I don't support the vinyl windows. There's a lot of work that, like you've mentioned, there's a lot of work that's been done in the detailing. There's these really elaborate Juliet balconies and wrought iron work and the tile, the surrounds going over the entryways and things. So I think there's a lot of detail in other parts of the project. So I don't see the consistency there when you start to see the vinyl units on there. So I would push for something else. Another aspect of the style that I'm still kind of struggling with is I think it needs a little bit more refinement because only in the sense there's a lot of details and it's almost like there's a grab bag and there's almost too much. There's a lot of wrought iron detailing and I could name off a couple different styles and I totally get that each unit has a little identity that's different. But, if I turn to like A3.1, I could see one balcony style. And then you have the arched inset with the tile work with another wrought iron decorative look on the gate. And then there's a really ornate wrought iron kind of grill over that window. A3.1.
There you go.
Thank you. There's this. There's the inset of that, which I assume is that kind of zigzagging. I don't know if that occurs on the inside of that arch. There's a tile detail that you have.
Yeah.
And then you have the grill work, and then there's that guy, and then there's that balcony on the other elevation, and then there's the fountain here. And then if you switch the page to A3.2, and then you have the chimney on the tower, I guess. So, and then you have this element where you have the shutters, which is nice and a little bit more kind of simplified, kind of revival style, but then you have this really ornate wrought iron balcony above, which is beautiful. So I think there's kind of like maybe a hesitation to go one way or another. And I think right now it almost looks like the wrought iron kind of wants to win out because it's so prominent in so many areas. And it's nice. So I'm not saying to strip it. But personally, I would like to see maybe some more refinement and maybe some pulling out of a few of those wrought iron details to kind of centralize it because there's a lot of different detailing options right now. It's going to be costly. But I also think it starts to read a little too busy for the scale of the project. On a bigger home, like a nice villa or something like that, I think you can get lost in that because you have such large massing. But I think with these being so compact, you almost want to keep specific on maybe one or two elements per elevation to kind of allow those to really read a lot stronger. Right now, I think there's kind of a fight between all the detailing. And so, I mean, that's a really nice element right there. That, to me, reads more central than that, but that starts to compete with that overall in my mind.
Okay. Can you summarize that comment so,
Yeah, I would explore looking back at the wrought iron work a little bit more and the tile work detail and all these extra details that are happening around the windows and doors and simplifying maybe to provide a more still unique per unit, but maybe a simplified approach. And then the other comment would just be about the glazing units, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's really nicely done.
Okay. Rob? No comments? Okay. I would echo those comments. I think the one other aspect that would help the project get final approval is to be very specific with your material callouts. Right now, we don't see a white plaster sample, which is like the biggest element of the project. We need to see that, as well as if you're proposing some of these elements, we need more information than it's the tile and the paint. These painted details are going to look like this. We need to know what those actual paint colors are and what those tiles are. That way, when it's built, they can actually go and compare and say, yes, that's the right product.
Could I just one little clarify? So you're saying like here, for example, it's not good enough just to show like a kind of a generic tile. We have to actually show the tile that we're going to put here.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just say decorative tile. Okay.
Yeah. Then to add to that, so I guess we need to, is the next agenda, how is that looking now that we're,
So we're agendizing out to February 26th.
okay, so would it be a 4-week continuance or would it be an indefinite?
It would be 4 weeks if you would. This is not something that staff would need to re-review, so
Okay.
we could put it to the next agenda.
So I think it would be a 4-week continuance to the next available ABR agenda. The summarizing the comments would be to bring back a complete materials board, including all materials in the project. Study eave details, as Howard suggested, to match the level of detail elsewhere on the project. We appreciate the wood railings and the colors proposed in those locations. The iron railing needs additional detail. We appreciate the awnings. Study an alternate color, whether it's green or something else. I think we all agree that the vinyl windows need restudying, is that they're not at the same level of detailing as the rest of the project. There's concern about artists painting over these proposed wood doors. I had also written to match, make sure the elevations match what is proposed on the material board or vice versa. Study the various combinations of ironwork and details on each building and potentially simplify combinations of details.
The blend.
Right. Specify the roof tile blend as well as, what do you call it? It's not spacing of random tiles, but what is it? It's,
Well, I think there's some way of describing the placement of these double build-up tiles
right.
in the roof with amidst the
Right.
in the midst of the S tile. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know how you,
ways of saying
a percentage of
percentage, frequency,
spacing
spacing,
of build-up tiles within the
total number,
S tile field.
and also the ridges, rakes, and eaves. That they need to use barrel tiles on those
I
locations.
think he calls that out already.
Is that called out?
Says triple stack starters.
I think you need to add
I need to add the ridges.
ridges,
and
rakes,
Okay.
and eaves.
Yeah.
Add mission tile at ridge, rake, and eave.
You've got the starter course, but it's
Yeah.
basically ridges and rakes.
Yeah. That was the intention.
And chimneys as well. You got the same issue with the chimneys there.
Can I ask one question about the garage doors?
1 second, let's
Okay.
finish our thing here. So that would be the motion. Do I have somebody that wants to make that motion?
I'll make it
Okay.
as you have spoken it.
Okay. Does somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One abstention?
Do I need to abstain?
Yep. Okay.
Next time.
I just wanted to ask about the garage doors. Is it necessary to have the artist to make the drawing of what the painting would be, or because that might be harder to.
Yeah, I think the concern is that the image you're showing doesn't necessarily lend itself to an artist overlay of that.
Stenciling,
That makes sense.
like stenciling, yeah. Not appropriate here.
Thank you, guys.
It's a great project, and there's a lot of, I would say, chewing gum for the eye.
There's a lot
There's a
going
good
on.
example of that door that you're doing on James Paseo de Rubio over at Palomar. They did exactly that at the December Fest. It's pretty obvious. Like when you drive by, you can see it on the mountainside.
Where's that again? Let me write that down.
You know where Plaza del Sol intersects Palomar?
Okay. Next, we have 1225 Coast Village Road.
Can I take the color boards?
Okay, this is a proposal for a remodel of 2 commercial properties at 1225 and 1235 Coast Village Road. Project consists of replacement of the existing concrete walkways with new brick pavers, revisions to planters, landscaping, and remodeling of the commercial storefronts to include new frameless windows and doors, shutters, and new cultured sandstone wainscoting. No grading is proposed. First concept review. All right, could you introduce yourselves?
I'm Rex Ruskoff, the architect of the project.
Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
Trey Pinner, property owner, representative.
All right.
Paper shuffle.
There we go.
Here we are.
So we're coming before you with dressing up the front of these 2 buildings here, and I want to give you a little bit of a background. We'd come before the board about 3 or 4 years ago with a total 4-site redevelopment, upgrading of paving and everything through it. We're still in the process of looking at our options on that and coming back before you with that. What's triggering us being here is every door that accesses from the paved surface to the suites does not meet ADA. And we were doing a project here. We had to feather out some concrete to create a level landing and then feather it back in. And one of the other owners looked at it and said, that looks like hell. And we agreed. So now we have a new tenant that's going into this building. We said, that owner, what can we do about it? Well, we're ultimately going to go to a brick on sand paver. So we're here proposing to do the brick and sand pavers for the fronts of these 2 buildings right here, which will alleviate our ADA issue and certainly dress up the front of the properties. So we have 1225 and 1235, and the tenant that we're responding to is going into 1235. But we couldn't see just doing this piece without doing this piece, so we're proposing to do the whole Coast Village frontage. There are existing on-grade planters in front of the situation as it is, and we're using a combination of raised planters, which I'll get into the detailing, but they'll be clad in a cultured sandstone with a sandstone cap on it, and then surface planters. And what we're utilizing them for is what we discovered when we were looking at the full project is there's some grade issues, some accessibility stuff, and so we can use a raised planter to accommodate a grade on one side and then mitigate it on the other side to warp. The beauty of doing the brick on sand is also going to allow us to warp things in such a way that we can get good positive drainage, meet accessibility, and have just kind of a homogeneous look to the front of the project. The other scope is for this tenant, we're looking at downsizing. This is a large window that they want to go to a smaller window. And this is a combination of a large window and a door. They want to eliminate the door and go to that smaller window. And then on the back elevation, there's a door. These are common area restrooms. And there's actually a door on the back so they can be accessed from either side. We're going to eliminate that in this proposal and plaster that in to match existing.
Does this unit use these restrooms?
This unit uses this restroom.
How?
There's the door.
There's a door.
All those tenants have direct access to the restrooms from a back door. The outside door is not really needed anymore.
Yeah. Is this a window or a door?
That's currently a door that has no handle on it at this point. It's been blanked off. It serves as good accessibility for maintenance to get in and service the bathroom, but it's not utilized by the tenants at all because they all have internal access to the restroom. So 1225, we're removing what is basically some fairly ancient concrete along where I'm showing the pavers. In my hatch pattern, it looks like a paver.
Crosswalk.
But what we're actually doing is a red brick and a herringbone pattern. We've had some success with it. We used it over at Pueblo Viejo across from the Presidio in a project there. And the owners really like the flexibility from if you have to get into some utility, you can just pull up the brick, do your business, fix it. I'll show you the detail of this, but these will be raised planters, and by raised, I'm talking a maximum of 18 inches. They'll be done in CMU and then clad in a cultured sandstone with a real sandstone cap. That cultured sandstone people do make a cap, but it's just not as effective as using actual sandstone on the two of them.
CMU is raw.
The CMU is just the base upon which
Right,
we're
but
applying
you're
the
not going
veneer.
to plaster it. It's going to be.
Yeah,
All be veneered.
it's all going to be veneered with the cultured stone. Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
it's the structure.
Whole wrap.
Got it.
Yeah. 1235, and this is where we're having to deal with. From here to that front door was too steep, and so we're going to go with a single step, wrought iron rail on either side. And then by the time you get around here, this sidewalk is dropping down ever so slightly, but by the time you get to here, that's an accessible path to get to the front door. So
That's a step down or up?
that's a step down from the sidewalk down to the walk surface. And then by the time you get here, it's just about level, so it's, and that's what these raised planters allow us to do, is to deal with some of those grade changes in a good fashion. So the raised planters, as I'm calling it, would be 18 inches plus that stone cap, and then we have the concrete block as the structure to which the veneer goes on. So it's the entire perimeter. There are a couple of planters. I should flip back a page, just one page. These planters will be 30 inches. They're on either side of an existing driveway.
What's the thickness of the veneer?
It's that probably about 2 inches.
So
I'm
this-
sorry, I said herringbone. Basket weave is what we're doing.
So this is sandstone and this is
Cultured sandstone.
cultured.
Yeah. The cap that they make really isn't as effective as the stuff, and we've utilized this on his house.
Oklahoma. It's called Oklahoma sandstone
Yeah.
for the top.
A floor plan that really isn't necessary for this building because all of our work is exterior, with the exception of we're changing out the storefronts. And I'll show you that in the elevator. And then there's a sandstone wainscot that we're adding here and here.
Is that cultured also?
That's cultured with a real sandstone cap on the end.
Let's let him do his
Okay.
presentation, then we'll get into questions.
This one I believe we've covered, but 2 new openings over here, reducing the size of the existing and then filling in that one. New storefronts here and here. So this is a contiguous streetscape of both buildings. We're proposing a 42-inch high sandstone, cultured sandstone with a real cap. Yeah. Wainscot that would wrap around the side partway back, and there's a break point where it makes some logical sense, and then those raised planters in the front. And the grade is such that it's 18 inches on the downhill side, but it's only about 9 inches where it abuts the sidewalk, the existing sidewalk. A couple raised planters here.
That's why we see this, right? That's this.
Yes. Yeah, what we're doing is a little larger elevation. So we're going to a frameless glass entries on the Coast Village frontage, and it's got a 10-inch high base on the bottom, which meets ADA, so we're carrying that all the way across in the windows too. And then they sit back into the framing a little bit, so that detail you were looking at is, we'll use the corner piece to bring that back into the frame. The actual frame is about 2 inches thick, but we're going to return either the stone or the plaster to it, reducing it to about 1 inch or 0 exposure on this frame here. We didn't go through photos. We can go through photos.
Just to give it some
Yeah.
reality as to how and where the changes are being made.
And then this is just the adjacent building. Similar situation, raised planters, revised storefronts.
Okay.
Would you like Sam to go through his presentation before we go to comments
please.
and questions? Okay.
Should be right there. Planters, you can see we're adding new material. We're also taking advantage of the potential of a new tree in this island. There's an existing bougainvillea, but no tree. So we're adding, how close do I have to be? We're adding eucalyptus cytoroxylon in here as a 24-inch box in this planter to kind of create a little bit more layering to the buildings. But we're also going to put some pots along this area. It's a concrete area, so there's no room to get to dirt. But we're going to put in some Dianella variegata, which is a nice strappy plant that'll...
Yeah, you got to move it away from me, so it's pick the whole thing up. There we
Too
go.
close?
No.
Sorry.
It's in your ear.
Heck of a thing to say.
Plug me. Plug me up. So again, this is north side, so in some cases there's a two-story shadow. So this is one of the reasons why that plant choice was made. Oh, thank you. And then moving along, we're going to be creating some shrub massing with some small aloes, and I've put some pictures here. This is the small kind of small leaf aloe that's underneath this, which is the Callistum Little John. So we're going to have kind of a middle layer of higher shrubs and a smaller layer of succulents. We also are using Agave attenuata to break this up and to kind of add some texture. Over here, as we move along, we have an existing sign that is the Olive Mill Plaza sign that is perpendicular to the direction of travel coming on Coast Village Road. So that we're going to enhance the planting underneath with some lamandra grass, some agave, and some aloe around the edge. We're also going to use a large Phacrea variegata, which is an interesting strappy variegated large succulent here, 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 and here to kind of had a continuity across the front of this building. These planters are not large enough for that to happen, but these create a large enough planter area to kind of get some bigger volume plant material. So the grass is used here underneath the plant. I mean, the sign. We've used it here and here and here. So there's some kind of clean continuity that we're bringing to the building, and a kind of simple grass and succulent palette that I think is very drought tolerant to enhance these new sandstone planters with the brick shown here and all the access. So I think that's the main theme throughout. We're also changing these two planters at this entrance and using the same plant material to, again, add kind of continuity and a balance to the entire frontage along Coast Village Road.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Howard, would you like to start with questions?
So the paving that is on this strip here, is that on a
Mr.
slab?
Chair, can you
Then
open
on the
public
building?
comment?
Sorry, Howard, we have to
Public
open
comment.
public comment. Anybody here in the public wish to address this project? Seeing none, close public comment. Back to questions.
Okay,
A few more,
so
it's part of the set.
this paving is on the building, right? It's on a slab, and this paving is on the sand.
All of the area that is shown in the brick pattern will be brick for the most part on sand. So from the face of the building out, back in here, there's a transition. There's some sort of a retaining wall that comes in like so.
I see.
So it
So
will,
this is on dirt,
yeah.
and this is a slab back here.
Yeah, this is an elevated concrete
deck.
Raised.
Yeah,
This is
concrete
a
walkway.
raised.
Yeah, okay,
All the
Yeah.
circulation on the
Yeah.
outside up above.
okay.
And on the lower level too. But we're not touching this piece, but we are doing everything that's on grade.
That's the best image to show what, that's a that's a raise.
building banner.
Yeah, this is
Walkway.
looking from that corner over there.
So, point two, are you doing frameless glass in all of the storefronts on the lower level?
On the lower level fronting Coast Village Road, yes, we'll be doing frameless glass entries to
Could you indicate the detail of that you have here? I think we saw it, but I just want to look at it again.
So
it
it's
is-
it's
it-
frameless and that there'll
frame.
be no mullions in it, but there is a channel around
I
the
get it, I
the
get it.
perimeter of the entire
Yeah,
fenestration. The individual, there'll be, when it's a continuous panel, there's probably going to be two panels with a silicone joint in the middle.
so this goes around jam, head, and
Ja-
then this sill is,
Jam and head, and then that's the sill. And then what I'm doing to reduce it is to bring the plaster in, or the stone in the lower detail.
thank you. We got no more questions.
David?
So I was looking at maybe this pic right here, this planner. This is that 1235, this guy?
That's 1235.
No, it's 25.
25? Okay.
Is that 25?
That's
Yeah, that's in front of
furthest west.
1225. Yeah.
So all the planning on the front, is it, sorry if I missed that too, is all the existing planning going to get taken out and replaced with what you presented? Or is any of this stuff going to show or remain?
All to be removed and
Okay.
replanted.
Okay.
Completely redone, yeah.
Okay. And then was there any consideration, it looks like here, and then I think with your new scheme, there's a couple planters that come back and kiss up against those posts. Was there ever any considerations for getting planting to kind of grow up the post or anything, or is that not desirable for
Actually, I
maintenance
didn't
reasons?
present that, but if we go back quickly.
Let me maybe respond to it. We have one,
There's one
there's
vine
one that's
that's
been that
under.
way. Most of the retailers don't like it because it tends to grow and hang in front of their store, and they're trying to show their
Yeah.
stores.
Okay.
So we have one that's
Right.
been a problem.
Excuse me, sorry, there's one existing vine right here.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese honeysuckle.
Is it that guy?
Yeah.
And so what I did was show another one over here on this post to kind of counterbalance these two. So only two, one is existing and one is meant to kind of just add to it, balance out.
Cool.
So only a couple spots.
Nice. And then last question, it's just a small one, is on the planner details on A 1.13. I guess maybe it's a two-part question, sorry.
Not
Yeah.
allowed.
I'll make one
Continuation.
one long question. On detail 2, there's a...
Put it in the picture.
I'll do this. Get a fancy picture. On detail 2, so the backside, I know this condition is pretty tight up to that grade, but on this one, it looks like there's a little bit more face of that CMU block. Are there any considerations to maybe wrap that backside too, so it looks a little bit more, I guess, keeping in the aesthetic of the area?
I think we'd probably want to do it in both details. This grade line actually could be up there.
Sure.
So we could bring the grade up, but I think it probably would be appropriate to put
Just to run it past?
on both of them,
Okay.
just so that grade's buttoned into that veneer.
That was a question I was going to get, is in other locations, I don't remember off the top of my head where the closest examples of sandstone are. I know in front of Chase they have some, but I don't know if that happens a lot on your buildings. But it'd be nice at least kind of keep that continuity of the cladding, if you will.
Yeah,
Just
I
a,
think that'd be appropriate.
Yeah.
no further questions?
Okay.
Is this a sign, monument sign?
Right.
It's an existing
It's
monument sign.
perpendicular to the street, so it's, I don't think
We
we have a
do
good
have
picture of
an
that.
approved sign program to redo signage throughout the place, but as we develop this idea, where that happens, we're not ready to put it in yet.
Okay. Any reason you couldn't add, thought I did that. Add a street tree here and perhaps 1, 2, maybe a third tree in these larger planters. Maybe not over here. These are small planters with 1/8 inch. Yeah, probably too small, but these two planters I think could easily accommodate a tree each, and this one, another street tree. That's a
Certainly
question. Any reason why you couldn't do
I think a
that?
street tree in that one is possible. I'd have to, I can't remember exactly what's going on in that
Well-
planter, but the other two, I think there's, the potential of the retail element and screening.
Pretty tight areas, but I would think that the issue is you've got a retail frontage and you're just blocking them all. I mean, all of these have signs all across here, including the second level, all have signage. So you're blocking everyone's sign, which would be a real, I think, a tough situation. I think our trees, we have a lot of trees around both sides of the property, on either side of it, on the ends.
Substantial star pine here, that's quite a signature tree. There's evergreen pears here. So I think there are a lot of trees.
I'll be quite candid. The tenants would probably say, "Don't make the changes and figure out another way." They would not be.
They would like their
would not
signage.
do it.
I'm looking at a blank space here, which I think is here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're
Yeah,
correct.
it's right there.
Yeah.
That's the planner. This is out front.
I think that's the
street.
island, which could certainly have a nice tree
No,
in that.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about against this
Right.
right here. That to me looks pretty blank. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you've got a sign there. Your sign program leaves that sign in place, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, there's the potential for 4 tenants there.
I think
Okay, well, I've asked my question. I'll make my comments.
Done with questions.
Will you please bring in samples of your Oklahoma stone and your cultured sandstone?
Okay.
And can you guarantee that the Oklahoma is not a flagstone, but is indeed a sandstone?
It is, in fact, a thick flagstone, but we break it to get that raw edge, and so it has kind of the flagstone top and then the raw edge that blends really nicely with the cultured stone.
Thank you.
I would comment that if we prefer to have a cultured cap, we'll go with it. We don't think they look as good as the real, but
We'll bring both.
we can do either one.
Okay. Howard, do you have comments?
Just one question. What color is your framing, the window framing?
It's a bronze anodized aluminum, and the rest of the windows throughout the complex are bronze anodized, so that it's in keeping with that.
So, the request for sample on the veneer and the cap, would that extend also to the paving so we could see what it is you're proposing?
Of course.
I think the project is fine. I agree with, I think the direction that Bob Cunningham is going, maybe not in this location, because I can see that clearly would obstruct signage, but certainly maybe here, possibly something here, but this is a blank end of the building anyway. The address happens to be right there on the edge of the balcony.
I think, I'll go.
Anyway, I'm just making comments. And, but those would be my comments. I'd like to see the material samples. It's fine. It's a big improvement.
Thank you.
Okay. David?
I would just reiterate what we already talked about. You saw that as just maybe wrapping the inside of the planters too, so there's that consistency there. and then maybe on that detail, just kind of calling out how much of that nose is going to project off there, because it looks, maybe it's just, licensing right now, graphic, it looks kind of like it's standing proud a little bit further than maybe it wants to.
Okay.
Those are super minor, though. I think the project as proposed is fine. I agree with the comments about bringing in samples just so we can touch and see kind of what that looks like up close. And that corner, I think, as you have it proposed, I think you had said something about doing a second vine there, right, at this corner location that we're talking about right
Yes,
now?
in that corner.
For me, I think that would be acceptable if that is going to be, for me, if you're going to do that and implement that versus a tree, I think that would kind of help, balance out the building as you propose and kind of help bring that corner some more life to it.
Good. I had a couple choices, but I think I'd stay with that honeysuckle.
Yeah, I think that would look okay for me. And those are my comments.
Okay. I only had one.
You can go first if you
Okay.
want. I do have
Okay, I
some-
thought you made your comment, but
No, he had his questions,
He had
now he
your
has his comments.
questions/comments. Okay, Bob, go ahead.
I like the idea of the giant honeysuckle. I think with regard to tenant issues, if this is the existing, is that correct, Sam?
Right, on that corner?
This plant has been poorly maintained, and it can be, nicely pruned to really do a whole lot better job than this one does. And another one over here, I think, is a really good idea. I think as you drive by here, and there is a tree here, you're still going to be able to read that sign if you consider a tree trunk of maybe 12 inches thick over time. The same thing here. Really think you need to have a new street tree here and 2 trees here. And a lot of experience with retail and landscaping in front of it. It's motion here. It's not, nobody is standing in one spot, not able to read a sign. So I can't buy that argument. I think we need to have some height against the building. This building is not that attractive, and that you could use some foliage up here. So the advantage of the project, I think your tenants would actually appreciate that once the trees are grown. Check with Parks, Sam, on the street tree designation, because I'm not sure that's the correct tree.
I'll make sure we check it.
And, obviously match it over here. And that's all I have, thank you.
Okay. I don't feel if the applicant was willing to provide a tree in this island, I would be fine with no additional trees in front of the structure. That's my own personal feeling. I think that's what they're proposing is a nice upgrade, and the tree, I think, would just be problematic in the end. Just point of clarification, there's no blue doors and windows proposed on the project, is that correct?
No, there are blue shutters.
Okay.
And the sign program incorporated a variant of the blue, and they're not as shocking as this. This is a printing issue.
Okay.
The stone's not as yellow as that.
Right.
It's life. But yes, that's already been approved. The building's already been repainted with your approval. It's a whiter color than you see in the photographs. The brown's a browner color, and then we have added the blue accents. The upper level doors are single light French, or over time are migrating towards single light French, and they will be done in the same blue.
Okay. Okay. Let me summarize the comments.
Can I make just a quick comment? Relative
Point
to
of clarification?
Point of clarification
Yes.
relative to this tree.
Please.
You're capable of driving here, but the road is out here. This is that section of Coast Village Road where there's the median and there's trees in front of that. So for most of the traffic, there's that layer of trees. You're right. As you're coming down here, hopefully you're traveling at a much slower speed. But I just don't see that tree. This tree to match that one. We've added the vine. I think we're getting that vertical planting that would enhance the building. So.
Okay. All right, to summarize the comments. Add tree at island at the east of the building. We appreciate the addition of the vine to match the existing vine on the west corner. Study details at site walls to make them consistently covered so we don't expose more CMU than necessary, as well as refine cap detail so there's not quite as much overhang as shown on planter wall detail number 1 and 2.
Samples.
Yes. Please return with a materials board showing samples of all proposed materials, including colors, sandstone cap, the veneer sandstone on the vertical, as well as the brick and any concrete color that's proposed with the stair. As well as any paint colors proposed on the steel railing. How do the other board members feel about this? Is this something that could come back on consent?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like a straw vote on trees in the front edge of the building.
Okay, we could do that. How many board members feel that the addition of a tree in the center planter is should be required?
Let's say desirable.
Desirable.
And I would also add the planter at the far corner adjacent to the driveway.
Let's start with the one issue first. So how many board members feel that a tree planted in the center planter is desirable? 2 to 2, so that fails. As a motion, I guess it's not really a motion, but it's a straw vote, so we have a tie there. How many board members feel that the addition of this vine and a street tree in this island is acceptable as instead of adding a tree to the center planter?
So what's the question? How are you questioning this?
How many board members feel that the addition of this vine to match the existing with the addition of a street tree in this island would be acceptable
Without adding another tree?
without adding a tree in the center island?
Okay.
Any board members feel that's acceptable?
That's okay.
Was that a hand raise as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's enough direction. We can take it
Yeah.
from there.
Okay. So I'd asked prior to the straw vote if the board members feel that this could come back on consent.
I need to see the sandstone.
Well, sure, they would bring it all.
The board needs to see the sandstone.
Okay.
Yeah, one more time.
This is the materials.
So this would be like preliminary, we come back for final?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a new item.
It is
Other than what we saw 3 years ago.
yes, no, this is,
Let's not discuss. Let's move forward. So the motion would be for project design approval to return on the next available agenda, which
PDA gets indefinite.
indefinite
Just how it
continuance, to return with full material board, samples of the sandstone cap, the veneer, vertical veneer, any colors that are proposed? Brick paver?
Et cetera.
Anything else? Anything else to add?
Correct, street tree, that's okay.
Verify street tree is correct. Someone like to make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So look nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Got one.
Can you announce the 10-day appeal period, Mr. Chair?
10-day appeal.
Oh, and there's a 10-day appeal period for this project.
Thank you.
Okay.
What's that? Oh, is it over now?
Nope, we have one
The
more.
last one?
No, you handed me.
No, but there's one more project.
There is one more. 500 block of Garden Street. Come on, grab some quick.
Larry Clark.
Still here.
Haven't seen you in a long time.
Stay out of here as much as I can. I understand. Stay below the radar range. These days. That's good. I have a couple more.
I'll look at this,
Okay.
this one right here. Is it premier seating here, arrangement here?
This is first time you guys have seen this. Larry Clark, architect for John Price.
All right, let me read the introduction here. So this is one-time pre-application review for a new mixed-use building. Project consists of construction of a 7,407 square foot, three-story building on a parcel currently developed as a parking lot in the MC zone. The proposed structure will include 3 one-bedroom apartments. Can I read the thing? Okay.
What's he saying?
We have to wait for.
Price, who owns several gas stations. in
It
Far West.
is.
And who's,
Yep.
Oh.
so,
No problem.
so this is the same John,
Well, it is because you would be able to have your item heard.
Oh,
John Price that is on the corner of Coast Village and Olive Mill?
yes.
Other projects with them?
And this is not there. Where is it?
No, this is downtown Garden Street.
Okay, okay.
Very large project going on with him.
Okay, so we only have 3 board members, so we do not have quorum for your project.
All right, you know, it's okay.
Apologize.
No problem.
It's happening
This
a
is
lot.
kind of interesting. It should get, probably, it'd be nice to have it heard with more
Yes.
members, actually, because it's a preliminary, I'm looking for direction and.
Yeah.
Sorry, Larry, I should have clarified this. I saw Price Living Trust here, and I didn't make the connection.
Oh, thank you.
My bad.
So you do work for John Clark?
Sure.
Apparently.
There you go. I've been doing stuff for her for a long time.
Yeah, John, he's actually
He's loyal.
He's a nice guy, loyal,
All right, well,
he does follow the rules.
Well, this was this one was yours. Do you guys want to keep?
Yes, please.
Oh, he wants to keep it. Well, that will close the meeting for ABR today.
When's the prep dinner?
Thank you.